7 months after the divorce, the single dad saw his ex pregnant on a rainy afternoon that smelled of wet asphalt and unfinished prayers, and in that instant, the carefully stitched life he had built since the breakup tore open without warning. His name was Daniel Harper, and he had learned how to survive heartbreak the hard way, by waking up early, packing his son's lunch with shaking hands, and pretending the silence in the house didn't echo his failures back at him every night. That day, as he stood outside a small grocery store clutching a list written in crayon by his 6-year-old son, he saw her. Emily Harper, his ex-wife. Her hair was longer, her face thinner, and her hands were resting protectively on a visibly pregnant belly that did not belong to his past, but somehow collided violently with it. The rain blurred his vision, or maybe it was the shock, but his heart dropped so hard it felt like grief all over again. Before the story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet power of compassion, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. Daniel had not planned on seeing Emily again. Their divorce had been clean on paper and devastating in reality. Years of financial pressure, sleepless nights with a newborn, unspoken resentments, and a slow emotional drift had turned love into exhaustion. When Emily left, she left behind a broken man and a small boy named Noah, who asked every night why mommy didn't tuck him in anymore. Daniel never poisoned his son's heart with bitterness. He told Noah that sometimes grown-ups get lost, and sometimes they find their way back to themselves, even if not to each other. Daniel became both father and mother in practice, though not in confidence. He burned dinners, missed school emails, and cried quietly in the bathroom when Noah fell asleep on his chest after a nightmare. 7 months passed like a long winter. Daniel worked 2 jobs, one as a warehouse supervisor during the day and another driving deliveries at night. He learned to braid hair from online videos and to read bedtime stories with different voices just to hear Noah laugh. Healing came slowly, not as relief, but as routine. He stopped checking Emily's social media. He stopped wondering who she was with. He told himself that whatever life she chose after leaving was no longer his concern. And then he saw her pregnant. Emily looked older than her years as she stood across the street that day, struggling with grocery bags and the weight of the child she carried. Daniel noticed details he wished he hadn't: the worn shoes, the tired slump of her shoulders, the way she paused to catch her breath. The man he expected to see beside her never appeared. Something in Daniel shifted, not jealousy, but concern, raw and unwanted. He could have walked away. He had every right to. But his feet refused to move. Over the following weeks, Daniel found himself seeing Emily in unexpected places. At the clinic, at the bus stop, sitting alone on a park bench staring into nothing. Each time, she looked more fragile. Each time, Daniel felt a pull between his pain and his humanity. The world told him to protect himself. His heart told him something was wrong. The truth came out not in confrontation, but in observation. Emily was living out of her car. The man who had promised her stability had disappeared when responsibility became real. She was 7 months pregnant, unemployed, and too ashamed to ask for help. Pride had been the final wall between her and survival. Daniel learned this accidentally, overhearing a social worker speak gently to Emily in a hallway, offering shelters and waitlists that felt more like polite despair than solutions. That night, Daniel sat at the edge of his bed while Noah slept beside him, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. Daniel stared at the ceiling, wrestling with memories of betrayal and the reality of a woman carrying a child who had no one. He was angry. He was hurt. But he was also the man who taught his son that kindness mattered even when it hurt. And he knew that whatever decision he made next would shape not only his life, but the kind of man Noah would become. What Daniel did next was not heroic in the loud way stories often tell. He didn't confront Emily with anger or demand explanations. He showed up. Quietly. Consistently. He left groceries where she could find them. He made sure her car had gas. He spoke to a lawyer about her rights and a doctor about her health, without asking for credit. When Emily finally broke down and accepted help, it was not because Daniel had saved her, but because he had made it safe for her to be human again. Emily moved into the spare room of Daniel's small apartment. Not as a reunion. Not as forgiveness written in bold letters. But as a temporary refuge built on mutual respect and boundaries carefully drawn. Noah accepted her presence with a confusion that slowly turned into cautious joy. He didn't understand adult wounds, only that his mother was nearby again, and that the house felt warmer with one more heartbeat inside it. The months that followed were not easy. There were awkward silences, nights of quiet crying behind closed doors, and moments where old arguments threatened to resurface. But there was also healing. Emily apologized not with words, but with changed behavior. Daniel listened not with bitterness, but with maturity earned through pain. The baby was born on a quiet morning, a little girl named Grace, and Daniel stood in the hallway holding Noah's hand as the sound of a newborn's cry filled the air. In that moment, something sacred settled between them all. Not romance, not obligation, but grace in its truest form. Life did not magically reset. Daniel and Emily did not rush back into love. They rebuilt something slower and stronger: trust. Co-parenting turned into partnership. Partnership turned into friendship. And friendship, over time, opened the door to something new, something honest, something earned. The family they became was not the one they planned years ago, but it was real, and it was whole. Just before the ending, take a moment and comment below what this story made you feel, and whether you believe people can grow after breaking each other. Years later, when Noah was old enough to understand, Daniel told him the truth. That loving someone does not always mean staying. That helping someone does not mean forgetting the past. And that the bravest thing a person can do is choose compassion when the world expects cruelty. Emily watched from the doorway, tears in her eyes, knowing that the man she once left had become someone greater than either of them imagined. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that broken people can still choose kindness and that second chances sometimes save more than one life, please like this video, share it, and stay connected with the channel. Your engagement tells us that stories like this matter, and that hope, even after divorce and loss, is still worth believing in.